A sentence is handed down to a former Prince George's corrections officer. Good evening. This is CTV News. I'm Rochelle Metzger. It was a case that dominated headlines for days in 2008. You may recall 19-year-old inmate Ronnie White died while being held in jail. He was arrested 2 days before for allegedly running down Officer Richard Finley with a stolen truck. 4 years after White's death, a corrections officer pleaded guilty to obstruction of justice charges. Today, a judge sentenced that officer. CTV Sonia Srivastava has more.
Well, 49-year-old Anthony McIntosh, a former corrections officer, is the only person to be charged in connection with the death of Ronnie White. Now, today, Judge Alexander Williams sentenced him to 2 years in jail. After receiving his 2-year sentence, former corrections officer Anthony McIntosh drove away as quickly as he could. McIntosh pleaded to an obstruction of justice charge in January, basically admitting that he lied to investigators about the circumstances involving the death of this man, 19-year-old Ronnie White. It was June 29, 2008. White was found hanging from his bunk with a bedsheet noose around his neck in a maximum security jail cell. He later died at a hospital. McIntosh admits not reporting the incident to superiors and covering up key aspects. The incident ignited major controversy. Just 2 days before his death, White had been arrested for running down Officer Richard Finley with a stolen truck. Finley was killed. Some called White's death vigilante justice, while others feared for the safety of prisoners. Today, White's mom and other family members did not want to comment, but were visibly upset. Now, McIntosh has 45 days to turn himself in at the courthouse in Greenbelt. I'm Sonia Srivastava for CTV News.
A medical examiner ruled White's death a homicide, saying he'd been strangled. But an extensive probe by Maryland State Police ultimately found that it was possible that he took his own life. Ronnie White's family received a $500,000 settlement in a civil lawsuit against the county. Well, a report out today reveals new details about an arson fire that injured 7 firefighters. The blaze was set at a home on 57th Avenue in Riverdale last February. An investigative team took a look at what went wrong and issued recommendations on what firefighters can do to prevent similar situations. And Denise Douglas is here now with all the details.
Yeah, absolutely, Rochelle. The fire, a horrific event. And the report released today, several hundred pages, is to at least try to ensure that it doesn't happen again. As we know, 7 firefighters were injured. The 2 that were most serious were at today's news conference. We got a chance to see the dramatic conditions that they faced that night last February, fighting the fire with the help of some helmet cam video. The blaze on 57th Avenue in Riverdale happened in an abandoned home. It was set in the basement. That's where Kevin O'Toole and Ethan Sorrell were trapped, which caused them to receive the most significant injuries of the 7. In all, the safety team looking into the tragedy came up with 46 recommendations, including improving communication and devising a plan to better fight basement fires. Here's what Chief Mark Bashir says one of the biggest they'll have to implement.
Biggest piece out of this is training. A lot of what is needed to fix this is for us just to follow the procedures that we have in place, but then to train towards those procedures and make sure we constantly are training our folks. Simulator training is one thing I talked about. That's a great way for especially younger officers to get a little experience before they have to be out there in front of it. We don't require it, but we're going to require it because that's a great way to keep them prepared. But training is probably the biggest thing that we pulled out of this.
Taking what happened and learn from it and better myself in the job that I do. That's what I hope the county will do as well. Take the things we learned, the good things and the bad things from this incident, and I hope the county will take that, build from it. And like they said earlier, the rest of the nation will take that and build as well. The fire service is always a changing aspect. Things are always changing, jobs are always changing for us. So whatever they can do to make it better and make it safer for us and make sure it doesn't happen to anybody else, more power. I'm enthused to help them out and make sure those processes get carried out.
Absolutely. There was already a $5,000 reward for the arrest of a suspect. An additional $10,000 was added today to that. Now, if you know anything about this, you can call 301-772-7766 for information on who may have started that fire.
And that investigation, you said, is ongoing.
Absolutely. And just to point out real quick, the firefighter you saw there is back on the job, but the second one with the bandages on his hand still has not been released by a doctor.
Well, hopefully he will heal quickly. Thanks, Denise. I know you'll keep us posted.
Absolutely.
Well, 2 recent fires have been added to the list of arson cases under investigation in the Laurel area. Just after midnight on Friday, a fire was set to the long-vacant Bay and Surf restaurant on Baltimore Avenue. On May 30th, playground equipment was set ablaze in the 14,000 block of Bowsprit Lane. After an investigation, officials believe the cases are linked to 7 other fire incidents, including several at local playgrounds set since March. The city of Laurel is offering a reward of up to $10,000 for information that leads to the arrest and conviction of those responsible for these crimes. And again, that tip line phone number is 301-77-ARSON or 301-772-7766. Well, a Bowie business spent the morning cleaning up after a car crashed into its building. Take a look at the damage to TNT Incorporated. The accident happened around, well, we don't have video of that incident, but it happened around 9:30 a.m. The front of the car was also scratched and dented. The driver, who works at a business a few doors down, tells us he accidentally stepped on the accelerator instead of the brake. Luckily, no one was injured. And you're watching CTV News. I'm Rochelle Metzger.